Joining us for a little bit is United States Senator from Louisiana, John Kennedy. Hey, Mr. John, how are you this morning?
Fine, Robert. Doing well, man.
I'm looking at the headline. Senator Kennedy fires letters at big banks protesting their post-school shooting firearms policies. And it says here in the article, blah, 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 a couple of the nation's biggest banks, including Citigroup, I believe, are in the Kennedy crosshairs. Let me rephrase, what have they done with their gun policies to kind of rub you the wrong way?
Well, I'm going to do more than fire a couple of letters. Here's what's going on. Citigroup and Bank of America have decided that they're going to make gun policy for the United States of America. Citigroup says it won't do business with anybody who sells guns to people who haven't passed a background check, which violates federal law. Citigroup won't sell a gun to anybody who's under 21, which violates state and local age discrimination laws. And it won't do business with anybody who sells high-capacity magazines. Bank of America says it'll no longer loan money to anybody that manufactures semi-automatic rifles. Now, you may say, well, these folks are in the private sector. They can do what they want. There's just one problem. The very people whose constitutional rights they're stepping on agreed to step up to the plate in 2008 and 2009 and bail Citigroup and Bank of America out. The American taxpayer gave about $476 billion, almost half $1 trillion, to Citigroup to keep them from going broke. Gave Bank of America about $340 billion.
So you had, pardon me, Mr. You said a second ago, I'm going to do more than fire off a couple of letters. You're a United States Senator, but you can't really do. How do you put the pressure on these people to, as you just pointed out, follow the law to be fair? You're going to have to get a couple of other folks to go along with you, right?
Yes, Mike Crapo, who is the chairman of the Senate Banking Committee, and I are talking about legislation. I'm filing a formal complaint with the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. I mean, imagine, Robert, if Citigroup announced tomorrow that it would no longer do business with anybody who supports Planned Parenthood. All hell would break loose. Imagine tomorrow if Citigroup announced that we're no longer going to do business with anybody in America who believes in the First Amendment or who doesn't believe in climate change or who does believe in climate change.
You know, Mr. John, we've talked about this, and we've had Tom Gresham. He's the host of Gun Talk, nationally syndicated show. It's on KEEL on Sunday. And he's made reference to the Michael Bloomberg, former New York mayor, and the millions and millions and millions that he has pumped into anti-gun groups. There must be a lot of heavyweights, a lot of anti-Second Amendment heavyweights who are leaning on these big banks. What do you think? What do you hear about that?
Well, I think that's true. And look, this is America. You can believe what you want. That's fine. If a bank wants to take a policy like that, that's fine. But you can't come crying to the American taxpayer if you get yourself in trouble. I mean, these gun owners, in part, and I'm one of them, gave Citigroup $476 billion to keep them from going broke. Bank of America, we gave $336 billion, not million, billion. So you can't have it both ways. And if this were just a normal business, saying, hey, we're not going to do business with so-and-so, as long as it doesn't violate the Civil Rights Act of 1964, you can do that. But these banks are different. And I don't think we ought to have red banks and blue banks. That's where we're headed. We're headed to banks that say, well, if you voted for President Trump, we don't want your business. And banks that say, well, if you voted for Secretary Clinton, we don't want your business. I don't want red banks and blue banks. I want safe banks. I want banks that don't come crying to the American taxpayer when they make stupid decisions and get themselves in trouble.
But, John, at the end of the day, do you think that Citibank or any of these other great big banks that are growing more and more powerful by the day, by the way, do you think they really want to be red banks or blue banks, to use your lexicon, to use your phraseology? Or do you think that the pressure being put on them by the media, by the anti-gun groups when they see, the marches and stuff like that, are they folding to the latest political wind?
Well, probably, but that doesn't mean they don't bear responsibility. Look, I try to be a good Methodist. I think the good Lord gave us free will, but with free will goes responsibility. You're responsible for your actions. And I'll tell you this, I have written Governor Edwards and this entire State Bond Commission. Citigroup and Bank of America have a lot of big old juicy consulting contracts with the people of Louisiana through the state. They make millions off the state of Louisiana. But yet they're going to turn around and condescend and look down their nose at those of us who believe in the Second Amendment. I've asked them to cancel the contracts. I mean, this free will stuff, and you can do what you want within reason on the Constitution swings both ways. If Citigroup says it has a right to do this, we've got a right to say it. Great. On behalf of the taxpayers in Louisiana, the vast majority of whom support the Second Amendment, we're going to cancel your contracts, and I hope Governor Edwards does it.
Mr. John, there's an old political phrase, sort of a sports analogy. If you want to carry the ball, don't be surprised when you get hit. Since you have gone to the United States Senate, you have hardly been a shrinking violet, a wallflower. To the contrary, what kind of, if you give a little peek behind the curtain, what kind of pressure is put on John Kennedy by these lobbying groups, these political groups? To put it bluntly, what kind of threats are made against you? I would assume at every day.
Well, yeah, we're pressured a lot on any issue, and we look at, I don't know, there are thousands of issues before Congress.
I mean, pardon me, did you have any idea you were such a horrible human being?
Well, I don't live my life based on the expectations of others. I try not to anyway. Look, the lobbyists, it's America. You have the right to petition your government, and they're everywhere. They're kind of like stray dogs. You feed them once, and they come back forever. And I try to be polite and listen, but their position doesn't bother me. I mean, it doesn't. This is not my first rodeo. I've been in government for a while, and I decided early on I was going to be my own person. And I've got one client, people in Louisiana. And if my colleagues get mad at me, or Citigroup gets mad at me, or this other group gets mad at me, they need to call somebody who cares.